Okay, belief is not a choice. I don't know how I look. I can't even see myself because I'm on that multi-window view on my Huawei phone. Okay, belief is not a choice. Simple as that. Belief is not an act of will. When you become convinced of what you become convinced of is not chosen. It's simply what appears to be true to you, to whatever extent it may be, since belief is a measure of being convinced of something. That is my whole point. I know from experience that people don't believe this even when explained to them, so I expect plenty of people to not get this. But to me, it's simple logic. Now, I've been a Christian for most of my life, at least 2 decades, and not once throughout that time of belief did I ever consider that belief wasn't a choice. Now, having realized that, I realize that Christianity doesn't make any sense. Maybe Calvinism acknowledges that belief isn't a choice, but Calvinism is crazy and deemed crazy by other breeds of Christians. God dooming people to eternal torture based on something that is not in one's control, being convinced of something, is not logical. But that's not Christians' claims. They claim that it is a source. No, sorry, I can't read. They claim that it is a choice, so something's wrong. Eternal is a long time, an unending time, so can it even be deemed long? I think not. Hip hop is pop. So that is my whole message. The rest of this video is trying to convince people that aren't already convinced based on what I've said so far, that belief is not a choice. These things are explanations. I'd say proof that belief is not a choice, describing the mechanism of belief formation as best as I can. When one receives information, data, evidence, each mind identifies and processes as much as it does, and naturally comes into question its validity. In response, I think it's weighed against worldview, experiences, beliefs, opinions, knowledge, and out pops a conclusion as to what that individual thinks about its validity. Now, in the same matter, different individuals obviously come to different conclusions. Regarding this very topic, people either are convinced that belief is a choice, isn't a choice, or that individual is unsure. Belief is a choice. You're wrong, you say. Okay, then answer me this. Then answer me this. You believe that belief is a choice. Can you choose to believe that belief isn't a choice? Or is that impossible because you're convinced of the opposite? How can you choose to be convinced that the opposite of what you're convinced of is actually the truth? See how illogical that is? It makes no sense. It's like this. This example applies to most people because most people believe that they're not a biological cat. So for people who believe that biologically they're human, can you choose to believe that you're a biological cat? Or is that completely impossible because everything in your knowledge, you being a sane person, points to you being a human? So, I guess you said jeez. So, my feet, I shouldn't have worn I shouldn't have stepped in. Shit. So you can't choose to, I need it one sec. So you can't choose to be convinced that you're a cat because you are not convinced that you're a cat. Belief is not a choice. It literally applies to every belief. You can't choose to be convinced of what's opposite that which you are convinced of. I don't want to fatten up this video with infinite examples, so I think I'll end it here. Actually, for anyone that's not enough, okay. Of course, if new contradicting information is introduced, which has you now convinced of the opposite opinion, okay, that happened, but you didn't choose to be convinced of that either. Now, when it comes to Christianity, what do I think now, having been a Christian for so long, and having evidence support that belief? Well, yes, there is evidence that I can't validify entirely, and do not have the ability to seek those things out because I was brain damaged by antipsychotics. Could barely do this. I think there's truth in the Bible. Did Noah surf the earth in his big boat? Potentially. I have no idea. There's some evidence for that. Ask Dr. Kent Hovind. Were Adam and Eve the first humans? I don't know. It's way more realistic than evolution, and I can't think of how else we came into existence. Was Steve... Oh, jeez. Oh, my goodness. Was Steve there too and left out of the Bible? Is Zoolander God? I don't know. All that I know is that if the Bible is written by God through man, and he cannot lie, and the text claims that belief is a choice, then something is wrong. Does the Bible even claim that belief is a choice? I don't know. That's how Christians treat it, and it might be implicit. Am I using the right words?